As yet another asylum farce. A migrant camp condemned by the Home Secretary moves torture victims into hotels. We're going to read into this exclusive from The Independent, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an exclusive from The Independent with the headline of yet another asylum farce. Migrant camp condemned by the Home Secretary moves torture victims into hotels. The exclusive reveals that crisis evacuation of some 100 migrants from a camp that Priti Patel said was unfit for purpose and James cleverly promised to close. The government's forced to reveal to The Independent. So, just before I share my thoughts, I just remind people that there was there was a story similar to the treatments of how some migrants are, not just by many different outlets have been reported. I've shared one or two from exclusives from iNews as well, if not on here, on then possibly on Patreon, about some of the way that some people have been handled in certain camps and whatnot. And this is incredibly scary. There was one story we covered where I believe, where migrants were allegedly saying that they were going to commit suicide and set themselves on fire. Now it's obviously very in the past. Now obviously those kind of hearing those kind of things is incredibly scary and frightening to say the least. Now obviously some people in the comment sections on previous migrant videos have claimed that are claiming. I'm just saying they're claiming that migrants are treated perfectly reasonable. So this is another, but this is not the first time I've seen an article with regards to basically dispelling this claim. So, and I haven't directly seen, and I have to be honest with people because honesty matters to me. I have not seen direct photos or videos of migrants being mistreated or badly handled by private companies who are looking after looking after migrations, or by the migrants here in the UK who are waiting to get their asylum application processed. So I think that's a really important distinction that I want to make here, that I have not seen any photos or evidence that shows that. However, that's not to mean to say that there isn't happening either. So we have to bear in mind on that point of view as well. But the very fact that this migrant camp has been condemned by the Home Secretary, the current Home Secretary, James Cleverly, and the fact that Priti Patel, a former Home Secretary, who in my opinion was very strong on immigration, very tough, did talk very tough on it, not as tough as Suella Braverman, but she was very condemnation of, for them to come out and say these things, really does make you wonder just what was going on in this migrant camp, guys. So nearly 100 asylum seekers, including suspected victims of torture and human trafficking, have been moved out of the controversial RAF base that has been condemned by both Priti Patel and the Home Secretary James Cleverly, The Independent can reveal. The migrants who were housed at the RAF Wethersfield were quietly sent to hotels after the Home Office admitted it was an unsuitable place for them to stay. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they were put here because we didn't have enough places to put people. I'm going to assume that was the reason why they were put here, and they were put here as a last resort. Well, that's the perception of what we were supposed to think, right? The former airbase in Essex has been described as an open prison camp, with desperate migrants attempting suicide, going on hunger strike, and trying to set themselves on fire. I've read this before. Not in this article, but like I just said at the start, I'm pretty sure it was an exclusive that I covered. I can't remember if it was here on the YouTube or on the Patreon, but on Patreon. But I've definitely covered a video with these similar things that migrants are claiming to have done. So this is the second time I'm reading into this. It's also the subject of a legal challenge launched by refugee charity Care for Callous. Yes, I'm aware Care for Callous had a legal challenge. Mr. Cleverly said at the end of last year that he would try to close down the site located in his constituency as soon as practicable. The former Home Secretary Priti Patel has also described the site as not fit for purpose of having excuse me, no infrastructure, no amenities nearby. She also accused the government of being secretive and evasive about how long Wexfield would be used for. Well, depending on migrant numbers, they can't give a clear number because of how many are coming in, whether it's illegally by boat or those who are, let's say legally. There's no such thing as illegal migration. Those who are coming by boat, or those who have come from Ukraine and Hong Kong, which is the only two legal routes that are available for Hong Kong and Ukrainians. There doesn't seem to be, obviously, there is, at the moment of time, there is no legal route for people to come to the UK. So the new data only reveals in response to the Freedom of Information request shows that as 90 asylum seekers have been moved out since the camp came to use in July 2023. Some 676 asylum seekers have been sent there since it opened, and according to the figures that covered that period until the end of November last year. So according to this, there was 676 have been sent there since it opened. 19 asylum seekers have been moved out according to the Freedom of Information request. According to the Home Office, those who were moved out were suspected of victims of modern slavery, had claims of human trafficking, or had complex health needs that could not be managed on the site. Others had claimed to be victims of torture or said they were children. And I've talked in the past about how important it is that we must take whatever case they say very seriously, whether they claim to be children, victims of torture, modern slavery, human trafficking, whatever those comes to be, guys. We have to take them very, very seriously. Because we just don't know. For sure whether they're telling the truth or not. And we have to remember, again, the important point is obviously they are human beings with emotions and feelings, and we honestly just don't know their history, and they have to make a very judgmental decision on these people. So when they claim these stuff, we have to take them seriously. Now, it doesn't mean that they're telling the 100% truth. But we do have to take what they say very, very seriously as well. Because the last thing you want to do is have somebody who is a child or is a victim of slavery or a victim of human trafficking or whatever it may be, and then you claim them not to be and put them in a situation where they're extremely uncomfortable or awkward. So the true number who have left the camp is likely to be higher, as the Freedom of Information Day only runs to the end of November, and charities have said that more have been helped to leave since then. The senior Tory Sir Edward Leave, who has been campaigning against the use of an RAF base in his Gainsborough constituency, told The Independent that the latest figure shows that it is time for a rethink. Housing illegal migrants at a military base is just not working, said the former minister. There are so many problems with old buildings in need of upgrade and at a vast expense. It's not what our bases are for. The Shadow Immigration Minister, Stephen Kinnock, said the Home Secretary has previously declared his accommodation unsuitable, yet his department still continues to use it for vulnerable people. This hypocrisy and chaos reflects the sorry state of the broken Tory asylum system. It is hypocrisy to say that if it's unfit for purpose, then why are we still using it? And the answer, which I'm sure many of you will say, was because we don't have enough spaces. Okay, if we don't have enough spaces, well, why are we still using an open-air prison there for them when they're not prisoners, they're not criminals, they're not illegal migrants, they're victims, the vast majority of them. They claim to be victims, or those who are fleeing persecution, war, all sorts. We've had these conversations numerous times, guys. The Liberal Democrats Home Affairs spokesperson Alistair Chimmel MP said it is unacceptable for anyone to be held in living conditions that pose a risk to their health, he added. It's especially grotesque that vulnerable victims of modern slavery would be allowed to live there even after the former Foreign Secretary himself expressed concerns. That's the thing that I just don't understand, that they're expressing concerns and yet they're still allowing it. Tory councillor Graham Butland, the leader of the Braintree District Council, said Wethersfield is an unsuitable site for large-scale asylum seeker accommodation. He cited the lack of capacity in local service, its isolated location, and the impact it could have on the local community. Lawyers for refugee charity Care for Cas have launched a legal action against the government over its use of the site, which they say is a de facto detention centre and not suitable for long-term accommodation. Asylum seekers are confined to the camp apart from allocated bus trips, and only the base has only one entry and exit that opens into a country road. So they are literally in the middle of nowhere if they wanted to step out, but they can't even, that they're confined to the camp anyway. It's very prison-like, yeah, from the sounds of it. One of the clients, a 19-year-old Yunus, who was sent to the airbase despite dealing with a history of torture, an asylum seeker from Etra, has said he was captured in Libya, held in an overcrowded warehouse with 250 other people, and beaten. This is a 19-year-old, okay? He was then sent to the former RAF base directly after arriving in the UK in early July last year and was there for 3 months. He was able to challenge his move to Wethersfield on the grounds that he was unsuitable, and his claim was successful. He has now been moved to a hotel, and he said, "I was detained and tortured for several months in Libya. I came to the UK for a safe future. When I arrived, the government sent me to a prison camp." This is how it looks on the outside. I mean, the barbed wire fence there does make it look intimidating. It was so far away from anywhere. We were being kept behind fences. We couldn't leave. I don't know why. Someone who has experienced torture was ever sent there. A report last month by the charity Helen Bamber Foundation found that children survivors of torture and trafficking with people with severe mental illness were being held at the site, despite government guidance made it clear that these groups should not be housed there. So they weren't even. So these people. Okay, so there will be, obviously, if they decree that they don't have, if they decree that these people maybe don't have certain issues or whatever, that if they're deemed okay, then they send them there. But those who have these issues, they should not be sent there. But I feel like they kind of skipped the guidelines and just dumped them there just because they were struggling in the places to put them. We should not be using it if it's not a suitable accommodation for them, guys, in all seriousness. Doctors for the organisation whose members interviewed Wethersfield residents found that some were experiencing worsening PTSD symptoms and all were present with clinical depression. The human rights organisation Humans for Right Network said that 11 children who were wrongly treated as adults had been placed in the centre. So this is another picture of it from above. I mean, it doesn't look like very. It doesn't look like it doesn't look suitable, but obviously we don't know the inside of the pictures, so we have to be clear on that. But it does look like it doesn't look like the most suitable of accommodations from my perception. But maybe some of you guys will disagree with me. As of October last year, the main countries of origin migrants being held at Wethersfield were Afghanistan 29%, Iran 20%, and Eritrea 16%. One of the men interviewed for the Helen Bamber report said that he had attempted suicide because of the conditions inside the camp, adding that a group of 6 or 7 people had tried to set themselves on fire in protest. These should be, if any of this kind of stuff should be happening, or is it seen to be happening, there should be warning signs. There should be, why are their alarm bells not ringing if this kind of stuff is happening? Yeah. If there are committed suicides and that, why are their alarm bells not ringing? If that is what has been happening there. Last year, Mr. Cleverly said that the Wethersfield site wasn't appropriate for asylum accommodation, adding that the remote base had limited access to transport infrastructure. He added, "I will continue to really push down the illegal migration as soon as we close down the asylum centre as soon as practical." Plans to use the site were announced by the then Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick. Robert Jenrick, that guy. That guy is disgusting, foul, stench of a human being he is. He really is a nasty piece of work, that guy. You know, we talk about Suella Braverman, but I think he's just as bad as he was, as she was. In March 2023, with Suella Braverman using a rare emergency declaration to bypass the usual planning permissions required for the military base to be used. Maddie Harris of the Humans for Right record described a very consistent negative experience had by men who had moved into the Wethersfield. She also raised concerns about whether the Home Office who knew who was at Wethersfield, as one asylum seeker had recently told her that staff had no record of her on the residents being at the base. How did that happen? How did a resident on there not have a record? How did that happen? Steve Smith, the CEO at Care for Callous, said that the transfer of some residents out of Wakefield showed that the systematic disregard the Home Office has shown for their own accommodation policy. The policy is clear. No one who should have survived torture, trafficking or modern slavery should be sent to the Wethersfield camp. That people who have experienced such horrors are being routinely sent there is shocking. He said that it's clear that the government have no effective screening process in place for sending asylum seekers to Wethersfield. Yeah, there should be some kind of process. And it doesn't look like it. Looks like they're just kind of dumping them there just for the sake of it. A Home Office spokesperson said, "We continue to meet our legal obligations and provide accommodation for asylum seekers who would otherwise be destitute. The accommodation meets all relevant housing and health and safety standards. If it emerges an asylum seeker is no longer suitable for the site, they will be moved to a different accommodation." We say that, and we're just seeing. This is the second time I've seen stories about people wanting to commit suicide or set themselves on fire. This is not the first time I've read those stories, guys. I really have to stress that this is not the first time. Um, so, and the funny thing, and the thing is that it should be a great deal of cause for concern. You know, these are not criminals. These are not lawbreakers. These are migrants who have come to the UK wanting to be a part of our country and contribute to our society, and they want the opportunity to be able to do that. And obviously, their asylum application needs to be processed. But in the meantime, then they need to be treated with dignity, with dignity at least, guys. You know, some dignity and respect, because they are human beings, just like you and I. And don't get me wrong, I know some people are gonna ask, what about the British public right now? We are suffering right now. Where's our what about us? And I'm not taking anything away from British people. Trust me, I can absolutely assure you that I am just as much upset with the government and the handling of the way they've looked after the British public over the last 14 years, as I'm sure some of you guys are. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about those who have. This story is about those who have come here to the UK, who want to contribute to our country. The vast majority, at least. There's maybe a small percentage, a very small percentage, but the vast majority of them fleeing all sorts of things. Well, we've just seen some stories in there about one person being beaten there, an 18-year-old. Imagine if that was your son, you know, fleeing and getting caught up in a warehouse or whatever and beaten down whatsoever. You know, the never mind the physical, but the mental toll that it can take on people can be really detrimental. Those who have had human trafficking, modern slavery, all these kinds of things, guys, it's very heartbreaking. And we should remember that these are human beings. Yes, of course, we need to do more for the more needs to be done for the cost of living crisis and the housing issues that we have in this country. Yes, we need more homes, but who's been in charge the last 14 years? It's been the Conservative government. They've not built enough homes. Well, it's time that they stop. It's time that we get a general election in. And if we've had enough of the Conservatives, which I'm sure the majority of us are, then then we're going to apply all the pressure in the world on Labour to ensure that they get a grip on the immigration, get a grip on it, get a grip on the cost of living crisis, and change things for the better for everyone, not just for British people, but for those who have come to the UK, and get their asylum application process, whether they can be part of the UK or be deported. And that's what needs to be done. So what do you guys honestly think? What do you guys think about this story? This is not the first time we've talked about similar instances of certain migrants. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are in the comments section down below. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I upload another video. And if you want to financially support me, you can do so by joining in the YouTube membership for as little as 99p or joining me on Patreon for exclusive content there. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.